Welcome to the Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast. I'm Brandon Jaffe. Join us as we explore relationship and mental health issues by weeding out the trends in the mental health industry to uncover what truly works in improving our emotional well-being and relationships. At Inspired Resolutions Counseling, we specialize in providing interventions and resources for families with teens, focusing on topics such as teen mental health, parenting challenges, and family dynamics. Welcome back to Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast. I am going to dive into this interesting topic of supporting your teens and supporting your children in general. And it's an interesting topic because there's this tightrope that parents need to walk. On the one hand, you want to be there for them. You want to nurture them. You want to guide them and empower them and all the stuff that we now know is good that maybe in past generations was lacking a little bit. On the other hand, it's also a parent's job to teach boundaries, to say no when it counts and when it's important, to step in when their ideas or choices are unhealthy or going to be problematic. I'm going to talk about how we balance being supportive while still parenting effectively. Let's start with something that doesn't come naturally to some parents, and that's how to say no more often. And there are some of you parents out there who are great at saying no. You say no too much, but saying no can sometimes feel like you're closing the door on them. And just saying no all the time because you're the parent and you think that's what you're supposed to do, that's not a healthy behavior. That's not a healthy habit. But for those of you who struggle to say no because you have it in your mind that saying no is just simply not the way to go. I hear so many different parenting trainings and concepts and podcasts saying that saying no is wrong. And that's just not true. Saying no all the time is not useful and it doesn't make any sense. But you've got to say no sometimes. And so if we never say no, or give in and try to shield them from all their discomfort, they will not learn to be resilient. If we always say yes, that can turn into enabling and it can turn into distorting the roles and the expectations in the relationship. Here's the key. How we say no matters a lot. A firm but compassionate no is going to be effective. Being harsh and dismissive or saying it with an attitude is going to cause resentment. We want to show our teens that we care about them. I think it's also important when you say no and they're disappointed, let them have their little temper tantrum. Don't get involved too deeply into their debate. Remember that they're experiencing something uncomfortable. But think about how powerful a no can be when it's done with a healthy, kind, and loving heart and attitude. Think about how dismissive and powerful a no can be in damaging the relationship, in perpetuating unhealthy resentments, when you give the no in a spiteful, unnecessarily harsh or stern or dismissive tone or voice or way. Let's tackle what it means to be supportive when your teen has unhealthy behaviors or these bad ideas. And I was talking to a family. I've talked to many families. This most recent one just triggered me wanting to have this podcast, but I've talked to so many families where the teen has all these ideas, these fantastical and insane ideas, along with a history of making poor choices. And in that situation, it's really easy for parents to get caught up in the debate, constantly saying no, trying to make sure that they understand why what they're thinking is insane, instead of stepping back, not being dismissive, and finding a healthier way to help their children navigate through life. And a part of walking alongside our children, I say this all the time, is sometimes the navigation means allowing them to fail and being for them. But being supportive when your teen has unhealthy ideas, behaviors, or plans, it's sticky territory because parents instantly want to fix it or make sure that they protect. What I want you to think about is sometimes if your child has a history of coming up with these ideas, that might be a part of their journey, a part of their learning process. And if you're constantly negative, constantly criticizing, constantly shutting them down, it might not get you where you want to go with them. It might actually backfire. It might actually perpetuate their consistency in participating in and coming up with unhealthy or bad ideas. And so we want to be careful because sometimes you can just wait. You can hear them out and you can respond in a way that isn't shutting them down and negative, but still guide them a little bit. And so I want you to think about this. Instead of just, oh no, are you kidding me? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Do you remember the last time you tried something like that? That's a terrible idea. Instead of that, I want you to get curious. Say something along the lines of, okay, man, where did you come up with this idea? What triggered you having these thoughts? And how'd you decide that this is a good path for you to take? As you were coming up with this plan, are there any risks involved? Are there any things you're worried about? I call it being obliviously curious because when you're obliviously curious, you blank out your mind and you begin to ask almost innocent questions that aren't fake, that aren't about, they're not going to damage the relationship because you're not asking them to make a statement. You're asking them out of curiosity. Remember, teens are perceptive. And when they feel like you're not on their side, sometimes they shut down and they dig in without even realizing. Sometimes they realize and sometimes they don't. And it's to prove a point, not necessarily to you. Sometimes it's to themselves because they are insecure. They are building their identity. They are trying to figure out their way in the world. I want you to be positioned in your mind when you're having these conversations to remember, stay out of the debate. You don't need to fix it right now. Now might not be the time that they have the aha moment where they realize this is a terrible idea. They might have to feel like they're supported in a way. You don't have to go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. The support might be just that you're engaged in a non-judgmental way. And sometimes they've got to feel that and experience that so that they can come to some better conclusions. There's another concept I've come up with, and it's victim coins. In some of the examples I'm thinking of, the teen is just really battling. They're making mistakes, and sometimes they're willing to take accountability, but overall, they struggle to take accountability. And when somebody is making a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are affecting their life and their self-esteem, sometimes what happens is they begin to collect victim coins. It's a trap. It might be that they come in hot with this bad idea waiting for you to snap at them. And then the fact that they kind of deep down know they're thinking about making a mistake and going down a wrong path gets overshadowed by your negative response and your attack of them. And then the argument that you started. And so then they go, oh, I'm sitting with the fact that I have bad ideas and I've got these impulses that I don't like, but oh, no, never mind. It's not me. Look, mom just yelled at me. Victim coin. Oh man, look, she just put me down and shut me down. Boom, victim coin. When they collect these victim coins, it's a way for them to not be aware of themselves, to not take accountability. And often they don't even realize that they're doing it. A lot of times your teen will see themselves as the victim, even though it's so obvious that they've done the stuff to themselves and that your parenting is reasonable. They might say things like, man, you're always negative. You never support me. And this can be tough to hear, but it's essential to not participate in these. They're going to do some of it anyways, but if you keep your cool, if you keep control over your responses, if you know when it's healthy to engage in a debate and when it's important to just listen, what happens is you reduce the opportunities for them to collect those victim coins. It's their need to control the narrative of their situation because they're either too ashamed or not yet willing or not able to take accountability in a way that can change whatever they need to change in their life. And humans go through that. Man, adults are doing the same thing. And it's a part of the human process. It's a part of growing up. It's a part of maturing. It's a part of becoming a better person. And while we may not like it, we don't have to participate in it and make it worse. Remember, their reactions in these situations are often emotional. They're not reasonable. Teens are still learning to process their feelings. They need to learn to remain calm. And it's our job to model behavior in these situations. The behavior and the way you engage in these situations and what you model is actually more important than the words and the context of each individual situation. Don't take these things personally. Instead, redirect these conversations back to the bigger picture. For example, oh, I hear you feel unsupported. Can we talk about some of the concerns I might have about your idea? I don't want to tear you down. Can you help me find words so that I can learn more about what you're thinking in a way that you don't feel torn down or belittled? And so those are some reactions that I want you to consider building on. Speaking about having conversations, let's talk about feedback. As parents, we need to give feedback in a way that our teen will actually hear it or is likely to hear it. This means steering clear of overly critical comments, even when you know you're right and the thing that they're doing keeps happening over and over and over again. I want you to imagine this. Your teen shares something with you and you immediately respond with, "That's the worst idea I've ever heard." What happens is they shut down, they stop listening, and instead of being able to hear some constructive feedback, you've now damaged the relationship. What about this instead? You know what? I see how that looks like a good idea. In fact, part of that is a really good idea. Here's a couple of things that I'm thinking as you build on this idea. Sometimes they won't even take that. I get it. But don't forget that your role is to listen sometimes. Sometimes walk alongside them means you just sit alongside them and you hear. If you can find a way to healthfully ask questions in an oblivious way, I think a lot of the tension is going to be diffused in some of these cases. Another piece to this that I want to talk about is relevance. Teens are navigating a world where they are constantly seeking validation, whether it's from you, the peers, on social media. And again, I want to repeat, a lot of it comes from you, even though they're kind of shrugging you off and dismissing you. In the back of their brains, they seek and want your validation greatly. And one of the best gifts we can give them is the feeling that they matter, that their thoughts and feelings are relevant, even if we don't actually agree with them or their thoughts kind of scare us a little bit. We can validate the emotions behind what they're doing. We can work hard to see some relevance in putting on their shoes, so to speak, so that we can see where they're coming from and validate them. When we do this, we are saying, I value who you are no matter what season you're going through. I value you when you're figuring things out and making mistakes, and I value you when you knock it out of the park and are a clear success. And that is an important message to give to our children. And again, the balance is to not enable. You don't have to participate in some hare-brained idea that your child has. You can validate while not participating, enabling, and you can take a step back and see a bigger picture. Parenting teens is not easy. It's a weird, delicate dance of support and boundaries and teaching and learning and guiding and then letting go. But you don't have to be perfect. But if you seek out a greater influence, if you can allow yourself to be present and listening even when you disagree, then what's going to happen is the relationship is going to grow, your influence is going to grow, the happiness in the home is going to grow. And some of these moments where your child just seems insane and you can't stand what they're thinking and wanting to do, what happens is it becomes a part of this beautiful story of growth rather than another uphill battle that you had to fight on your parenting journey. I appreciate you listening today and joining us, and I hope you found this helpful. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And if you go to our website, you can send us some topics that you'd like to hear about. Thank you very much.
The Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast is an Inspired Resolutions production. Hosted by Brandon Jaffe. Edited and mixed by Natalie Atkinson. Music by Natalie and Sean Atkinson. Inspired Resolutions Counseling is based in Yorba Linda, California. Whether you're interested in joining our group, seeking therapy services, or exploring more of our resources, you can find us on our website, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at Inspired Resolutions Counseling.